From a flicker of candlelight in 1789 to the glare of modern screens in the West Wing, every president has held the pen. Executive orders not passed by Congress, but etched into law by command. Some shaped history. Some sparked controversy. Others were forgotten. Until now. This is where we break them down. Every signature, every shift in power, every consequence still felt today. From Washington to Biden, welcome to Executive Order Watch.
Democracy, we live for it. For democracy, we fight for it. For democracy, we've died for it. And for democracy, we watch it. This is Executive Order
My fellow
Watch.
Americans, the year 2014 was a turning point. It was a year when old threats reemerged in new forms, when hard-earned economic gains began to take root, and when we had to ask ourselves what kind of nation we wanted to be, not just in the face of crisis, but in the presence of change. At home, after years of struggle, our economy was gaining steam. Unemployment fell below 6% for the first time since the recession. Businesses were creating jobs at the fastest pace since the 1990s. Gas prices dropped. The deficit shrank. We were proving that middle-class economics worked and that a recovery built on fairness, smart investments, and shared responsibility could outlast one built on reckless speculation. But that progress wasn't just happening. It was being made. We raised the minimum wage for federal workers and contractors. We expanded workplace protections. We worked to make college more affordable, energy more sustainable, and healthcare more accessible to millions of Americans. Where Congress wouldn't act, I did, because governing is about moving the country forward, not sitting still in the face of political opposition. Abroad, the world reminded us that peace is never promised. We saw the rise of ISIL, a brutal extremist group committing atrocities in Iraq and Syria. I authorized targeted airstrikes to protect civilians and support local forces. We built a coalition of over 60 nations to degrade and ultimately destroy this terrorist network. We also faced a public health emergency with the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. Some called for us to shut our doors, but we chose leadership. We sent doctors, nurses, and the military to help contain the outbreak. And because of American resolve and international cooperation, we helped prevent a global epidemic. In Ukraine, we stood firm against Russian aggression, imposing sanctions and supporting a sovereign people in their pursuit of democracy. In Cuba, we began the historic process of normalizing relations after more than 50 years of isolation. A policy shift grounded in engagement, not estrangement. And throughout all of it, economic renewal, global leadership, social progress, we governed with a steady hand. I acted where I could, always rooted in law, always in service to the people. And when Congress refused to move forward on immigration reform, I took executive action to make our system fairer and more humane. Because America is a nation of laws, but also a nation of immigrants. So as we reflect on the decisions made and the challenges faced in 2014, we also turn to the tools we used, the executive orders. They helped reinforce economic momentum, protect human rights, respond to emerging threats, and build a more inclusive nation. And now we'll take a closer look at those executive orders, each one a chapter in the story of a nation committed to progress, even in turbulent times. Let's dive in. Executive Order 13,656. Establishment of Afghanistan and Pakistan, Strategic Partnership Office, and amendment to Executive Order 12,163 on January 17, 2014. Executive Order 13,657, changing the name of the National Security Staff to the National Security Council Staff on February 10, 2014. Executive Order 13,658, establishing a minimum wage for contractors on February 12, 2014. Executive Order 13,659, streamlining the export-import process for America's businesses on February 19, 2014. Executive Order 13,660, blocking property of certain persons contributing to the situation in Ukraine on March 6, 2014. Executive Order 13,661 blocking property of additional persons contributing to the situation in Ukraine on March 16, 2014. Executive Order 13,662 blocking property of additional persons contributing to the situation in Ukraine on March 20, 2014. Executive Order 13,663, establishing an emergency board to investigate disputes between the Long Island Railroad Company and certain of its employees represented by certain labor organizations on March 20th, 2014. Executive Order 13,664, blocking property of certain persons with respect to South Sudan on April 3rd, 2014. Executive Order 13,665, non-retaliation for disclosure of compensation information on April 8th, 2014. Executive Order 13,666, expanding eligibility for the Defense Meritorious Service Medal on April 18, 2014. Executive Order 13,667, blocking property of certain persons contributing to the conflict in the Central African Republic on May 12, 2014. Executive Order 13,668, ending immunities granted to the Development Fund for Iraq and certain other Iraqi property and interests in property pursuant to Executive Order 13,303, as amended on May 27, 2014. Executive Order 13,669, 2014 amendments to the Manual for Courts Martial, United States on June 13, 2014. Executive Order 13,670, establishing an emergency board to investigate disputes between the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority and certain of its employees, represented by certain labor organizations on June 14, 2014. Executive Order 13,671, taking additional steps to address the national emergency with respect to the conflict in the Democratic Republic of the Congo on July 8, 2014. Executive Order 13,672, further amendments to Executive Order 11478, equal employment opportunity in the federal government, and Executive Order 11,246, equal employment opportunity on July 21, 2014. Executive Order 13,673, fair pay and safe workplaces on July 31st, 2014. Executive Order 13,674, revised list of quarantinable communicable diseases on July 31st, 2014. Executive Order 13,675, establishing the President's Advisory Council on Doing Business in Africa on August 5, 2014. Executive Order 13,676, combating antibiotic-resistant bacteria on September 18, 2014. Executive Order 13,677, climate resilient international development on September 23, 2014. Executive Order 13,678, conversion authority for criminal investigators, special agents of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives on October 3, 2014. Executive Order 13,679, establishing an emergency board to investigate a dispute between the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority and its locomotive engineers, represented by the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen on October 10, 2014. Executive Order 13,680, ordering the selected reserve and certain individual ready reserve members of the armed forces to active duty on October 16, 2014. Executive Order 13,681, improving the security of consumer financial transactions on October 17, 2014. Executive Order 13,682, closing of executive departments and agencies of the federal government on Friday, December 26, 2014. On December 5th, 2014, Executive Order 13,683, amendments to Executive Orders 10,130, 136,553, and 136,773 on December 11th, 2014. Executive Order 13,684, establishment of the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing on December 18, 2014. Executive Order 13,685, blocking property of certain persons and prohibiting certain transactions with respect to the Crimea region of Ukraine on December 19, 2014. Executive Order 13,686, adjustments of certain rates of pay on December 19, 2014.
Pauline's
Folks,
Pizza, where we deliver happiness one slice at a time. What's your craving today?
Yeah, hi. Is Seymour there?
Oh, Seymour. I think he might be busy making our special pies. But hey, why not swing by the pizzeria? We've got a pie with your name on it. Anything else I can help you with?
I was looking for Seymour Butts.
Ah, I see. Well, if you're looking for Seymour Butts, he might be hiding behind a pepperoni slice. Anything else I can do for you today?
No, that's it.
Hi, I'm Terrence, a marketing professional with a passion for helping your business grow smarter and faster. Here at Da Bomb Digital Media, based right here in Atlanta, Georgia, we specialize in bringing your vision to life. Whether you're launching your first website or reimagining your entire digital presence, we've got you covered. From modern website design and search engine optimization to setting up your own AI-powered agency tools, we deliver innovative solutions that keep you ahead of the curve. Ready to unlock your business's full potential? Let's build something remarkable together. For more information, visit our YouTube channel. Just search Da Bomb Digital Media on YouTube and start exploring tips, success stories, and everything you need to elevate your brand.
Folks, let's talk about the year 2015, a year where President Barack Obama made some of the boldest moves of his presidency. And let me tell you, these weren't just ceremonial signatures or symbolic gestures. These executive orders, they had teeth, they carried weight, and they reflected a president who knew time was short, but the mission was far from over. How the executive orders affected that year 2015 wasn't about waiting on Congress. It was about acting where the law allowed, where the people demanded, and where the moment required it. Let's start with federal workers. Obama signed EO 13706, giving paid sick leave to federal contractors. For the first time, hundreds of thousands of American workers, folks cleaning federal buildings, guarding our facilities, had the right to take a sick day without losing pay. That changed lives right away. And today, it's the groundwork for expanded leave policies across the country. On the climate front, Executive Order 13693 set ambitious targets to reduce greenhouse gas emissions across federal agencies. It wasn't just good for the planet, it saved the taxpayer money and moved the largest energy-consuming institution in the country into the future. That order reshaped procurement, construction, fleet vehicles, you name it. The government started walking the walk. Cybersecurity, EO 13694, gave us new power to sanction foreign hackers, a direct answer to threats that had been growing year by year. That same year, Executive Order 13691 encouraged private sector info sharing, laying the foundation for the cyber defense networks we depend on now. In 2015, Obama made cybersecurity a priority, not a press release. And justice, Executive Order 13,688 restricted the transfer of military-grade weapons to local police departments. That wasn't an easy move, but it was the right one. After Ferguson, after Baltimore, the country was watching. And Obama responded, not with delay, but with decisive action to bridge the divide between citizens and those who serve them. He also signed EO 13707, using behavioral science to help Americans make better choices, whether it was applying for financial aid, accessing health care, or planning for retirement. Sounds small, but this changed how agencies serve people. It made government smarter. He even signed Executive Order 13702, creating the National Strategic Computing Initiative, investing in high-performance computing, paving the way for artificial intelligence breakthroughs. That's 2015 shaping 2025 and beyond. Major events that year, global and domestic. Now, let's not forget, 2015 wasn't just shaped by orders. It was a year of headlines, heartbreak, and hope. The Iran nuclear deal was signed. Years of diplomacy, hard-nosed negotiation, and in the end, nuclear weapons kept out of the hands of Iran. That was possible, in part, because of the framework laid out by sanctions orders and executive coordination that gave diplomacy real leverage. At COP21 in Paris, the U.S. stood tall, thanks to groundwork laid by Obama's executive climate policies. America didn't just participate, we led. Back home, marriage equality became the law of the land. And while that came from the Supreme Court, Obama used his executive power to ensure federal agencies protected those rights from day one. Tragedy struck in Charleston, and Obama sang Amazing Grace. Gun violence and racial injustice once again tore at the seams of this nation. And while legislative reform stalled, Obama acted where he could on data, police reform, and criminal justice coordination. The bigger picture. So what do you call a year like that? A year where we expanded civil rights, where we fought cyber threats, where we stood for the planet, where we gave workers dignity, and where, even in the face of gridlock, the presidency did not stand still. That's 2015 under Barack Obama. And now, the top 10. Next up, we're going to break down the top 10 executive orders of that year, the big ones, what they did, why they mattered, and how they still impact our lives today. Because these weren't just pen strokes on paper, they were decisions with direction. Stay tuned. Let's talk about 2014, a year of resurgence, reckoning, and response. It was a year when America had to show leadership, not just in words, but in deeds. Domestically, the economy continued its steady climb. Job growth surged. The unemployment rate dropped below 6% for the first time since 2008. The auto industry was thriving again, housing was stabilizing, and millions of Americans were gaining access to health care under the Affordable Care Act. But with that progress came challenges. We saw the tragic killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, and the protests that followed. It forced this country to confront the deep racial fault lines in law enforcement and criminal justice. In response, President Obama signed Executive Order 13,684, creating the Task Force on 21st Century Policing, a major step toward rebuilding trust between communities and the officers sworn to protect them. Then there was Ebola. When that outbreak spread in West Africa and panic grew here at home, President Obama didn't turn inward. He acted globally. We deployed health experts and the military to contain the crisis, and we created new safeguards to protect Americans. It worked. We helped stop a pandemic before it started. In the digital age, 2014 also marked a turning point. Security breaches and identity theft were becoming national threats. So Executive Order 13,681 was signed to modernize government payment systems and push the private sector toward chip and PIN technology, strengthening protections for American consumers. Abroad, Russia illegally annexed Crimea, destabilizing Ukraine and testing the West's resolve. President Obama responded swiftly with executive orders 13660, 13661, 13662, and later 13685, freezing assets and imposing coordinated sanctions. These weren't symbolic. They sent a message to Moscow and rallied our NATO allies around a shared standard of sovereignty and international law. At the same time, President Obama took executive action to raise the minimum wage for federal contractors with Executive Order 13658. It wasn't just about economics, it was about dignity. It said that if you work full-time in America, you shouldn't live in poverty. And while climate change remained a growing threat, EO 13677 committed us to climate-resilient international development, a policy that linked sustainability to national security and global cooperation. How these executive orders affected 2014 and the present, back in 2014, these actions helped steer the country through turbulence with stability and focus. They addressed real problems in real time. They protected consumer data. They supported workers and raised labor standards. They enforced consequences for aggression abroad. They elevated public health response systems. They took real steps toward criminal justice reform. And today the legacy is still strong. Our sanctions framework against Russia, especially during the 2022 invasion of Ukraine, still draws from 2014's executive orders. Our federal digital infrastructure, now moving toward full zero trust architecture, began its modern overhaul with the Consumer Security EO. The minimum wage executive order helped pave the way for broader living wage discussions in states across the country. The Task Force on Policing still serves as a model for reform conversations and community engagement today. Major events that shaped the year. Globally, Russia's annexation of Crimea and aggression in eastern Ukraine. The rise of ISIS, prompting U.S.-led airstrikes in Iraq and Syria, Ebola outbreak in West Africa, tensions in Gaza, and renewed global focus on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Domestically, Ferguson protests and the Black Lives Matter movement gained momentum. The Affordable Care Act enrollment period succeeded beyond expectations. Immigration reform efforts were halted in Congress, prompting executive action. Cybersecurity threats became a daily concern for businesses and government agencies. So as we look back, we recognize that the executive orders of 2014 weren't overreaches. They were overdue responses to urgent realities. Now let's take a deeper dive. We're going to break down the top 10 executive orders of 2014, the ones that defined the year and still shape the present. Let's begin. Number 1, EO 13684. Establishment of the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing, signed December 18, 2014, impact in 2014. In the aftermath of the fatal police shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, and the wave of national protests that followed, this executive order established a task force to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve. It focused on bias reduction, accountability, transparency, and better use of force standards. Legacy. The recommendations from this task force remain foundational in today's efforts to reform policing across the U.S. Its work inspired body camera programs, de-escalation training, and community oversight boards that continue into the present day. Number 2, EO 13685, blocking property of certain persons and prohibiting certain transactions with respect to the Crimea region of Ukraine. Signed December 19, 2014, impact in 2014. After Russia's annexation of Crimea, this EO reinforced earlier sanctions by banning imports, exports, and investments involving Crimea. It targeted individuals, entities, and sectors aiding Russian control of the region. Legacy. This EO forms the core of the U.S. sanctions regime against Russian aggression. It laid the groundwork for ongoing sanctions now intensified following the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Number 3, EO 13681, improving the security of consumer financial transactions. Signed October 17, 2014. Impact in 2014. With increasing cyber attacks and data breaches affecting American retailers, banks, and federal systems, this EO required federal agencies to use chip and PIN technology for government-issued payment cards and called for better fraud detection. Legacy. It helped drive the transition to chip-enabled cards nationwide, reducing fraud and setting cybersecurity expectations for federal and private sector financial systems. Number 4, EO 13658, establishing a minimum wage for contractors. Signed February 12, 2014. Impact in 2014. This order raised the minimum wage to $10.10 per hour for all federal contractors, reinforcing economic fairness in federal employment practices and sparking state-level campaigns for wage increases. Legacy. It created a federal wage floor that was later raised again by Executive Order 1426. It influenced minimum wage legislation in dozens of states and was a milestone in the broader fight for a $15 an hour national wage. Number 5, EO 13677, Climate Resilient International Development. Signed September 23, 2014. Impact in 2014. This EO required U.S. foreign aid and development programs to account for climate resilience. It integrated environmental planning into overseas infrastructure, agriculture, and health initiatives. Legacy. It elevated climate adaptation as a key U.S. foreign policy principle and continues to influence how USAID and the State Department build sustainable programs abroad. Number 6. EO 13660, blocking property of certain persons contributing to the situation in Ukraine. Signed March 6, 2014. Impact in 2014. This was the first EO in response to Russia's intervention in Ukraine. It allowed the Treasury Department to freeze assets and block U.S. entry for individuals destabilizing Ukraine. Legacy. The framework introduced in this EO expanded into multiple sanctions programs. It remains a critical instrument of U.S. foreign policy toward Russian geopolitical aggression. Number 7, EO 13686, adjustments of certain rates of pay, signed December 19, 2014, Impact in 2014. This EO adjusted pay schedules for federal civilian employees and military personnel to reflect cost of living increases and maintain competitive government salaries. Legacy. Though annual, this EO was important for supporting federal workforce morale during times of budget constraints and continued economic recovery. Number 8, EO 13673, Fair Pay and Safe Workplaces. Signed July 31, 2014, Impact in 2014. This EO required companies bidding for federal contracts to disclose past labor law violations and comply with basic workplace standards. It emphasized wage transparency and safe working conditions. Legacy. Though later revoked in 2017, it raised public awareness around government contractors' labor practices and influenced procurement policies still debated today. Number 9, EO 13664, blocking property of certain persons with respect to South Sudan. Signed April 3, 2014, Impact in 2014. As violence escalated in South Sudan's civil war, this EO authorized targeted sanctions on those responsible for mass atrocities and undermining peace. Legacy. It set precedent for U.S. engagement in African conflict zones through financial pressure and remains part of broader U.S. sanctions policy in sub-Saharan Africa. Number 10, EO 13675, establishing the President's Advisory Council on Doing Business in Africa. Signed August 5, 2014, Impact in 2014. This EO advanced economic diplomacy by creating a council to support U.S. companies expanding into African markets, boosting investment and job creation on both continents. Legacy. It catalyzed U.S.-Africa trade initiatives and continues to influence business strategy through Prosper Africa and other regional programs. Final reflection, the executive orders of 2014 weren't just checkboxes. They were responses to a moment of extraordinary complexity. They addressed racial justice, global conflict, cybersecurity, climate resilience, and economic fairness. They proved that when Congress stalls, the presidency still has tools to lead with principle and urgency.
Some write history with blood, some with laws, but the sharpest stroke comes from the pen. Executive power ain't just a tool, it's a weapon wielded by the few, affecting the many. They sign it, we live it. They order it, we obey it. Here, watching, digging, remembering, from the plantation to the proclamation, from internment camps to civil rights stands, from surveillance laws to student loan draws. Porter can change your life, and you might not even know it, but now you do. So stay locked in, stay woke, stay sharp. We ain't just talking about power, we tracking it. Executive Order Watch, and we ain't blinking.